College sports in the US are big business, and they're currently experiencing very significant change. And this change all boils down to one question: should college athletes be paid? But before we get into that, perhaps it's more useful to consider why college athletes should not be paid. Until recently, it was commonly held that college athletes were technically amateurs and therefore should not be receiving monetary compensation. But these college athletes can be far from amateurs in the true definition of the word. Many of these athletes have long professional careers ahead of them and significant followings already, but had been blocked from cashing in on that. The NCAA and individual universities, however, were doing no such thing. Indeed, University of Alabama coach Nick Saban made $11.7 million in 2022. And across the U.S., college football coaches at public universities are likely to be among the highest earners on government payroll. The median salary in the Division I football subdivision of head football coaches being north of $3.5 million per year. In 2019, of the $15.8 billion in revenue that went to the NCAA's Division Athletics enterprise, 35% was spent on administrative and coach compensation, and 18% on new facilities. 18.2%, $2.9 billion, was allocated to athletes in the form of scholarships. Significantly, as shown in studies such as those undertaken by the National Bureau of Economic Research, many of these student athletes on whose back the revenues are being generated are African American or from lower income backgrounds. The whole setup has been viewed as unfair by many observers for a long time, so much so that it was taken to the Supreme Court, who in June 2021 turned the world of college sport on its head and struck down limits on compensation for student athletes. In a scathing concurring opinion, Justice Brett Kavanaugh said that nowhere else in America can businesses get away with agreeing not to pay their workers a fair market rate on the theory that their product is defined by not paying their workers a fair market rate. Enormous sums of money flow to seemingly everyone except the student athletes. College presidents, athletic directors, coaches, conference commissioners, and NCAA executives take in 6- and 7-figure salaries. Colleges build lavish new facilities. But the student athletes who generate the revenues, many of whom are African American and from lower income backgrounds, end up with little or nothing. Several other collegiate rule changes have followed, and we've seen college players be able to sign deals to allow third parties to use their name, image or likeness, NIL for short, and receive money in return. These athletes are still prohibited to earn money from universities directly, but can now use their name, image or likeness to engage in promotional activities, product endorsements, or several other potential ventures. For an example of NIL in action, we're using Speechify to produce this video, giving us the voice of Cliff, who's currently narrating, but also of
Snoop D-O-double-G. There's unfortunately getting him to a studio was out of budget, but Snoop will have signed a deal with Speechify to allow them to use his voice, which comes under his name, image or likeness, in videos or presentations such as this. Snoop makes some money by allowing his voice to be used. Speechify make money selling more subscriptions. Back to the rule changes.
There are, of course, people who disagree with the Supreme Court ruling, challenging Justice Kavanaugh's opinion that student athletes end up with little or nothing. Greg Byrne, the athletic director of the University of Alabama, is once certainly disagreeing with this statement, noting that the university spends about $160,000 a year in room, board, and tuition for scholarship recipients. He also notes that with off-campus housing allowances and government grants, Alabama athletes receive about $42,000 in tax-free cash to spend as they like. Over $200,000 per year as a teenager still in school isn't quite nothing, and furthermore, the revenues generated from the big sports like men's football and basketball are often used to fund other athletic departments that don't quite have the same following, like wrestling or fencing, for example. If the star quarterbacks, the Bryce Youngs of the world, start taking too big a slice of the college sport revenue pie, perhaps the whole system that has been working and operational for years could fall apart, with college athletics and future student athletes paying the price. But how much of the new money being made by the athletes is part of the traditional revenue pie? Traditionally, money being made by the universities would be from broadcasting deals with the likes of ESPN or ticket receipts at a game.
Just an in a great rhythm right now. 5 for 8, 66 yards. Watson back in. Watson trots into the end zone. And our first touchdown of the night, the Memphis Tigers.
But often these money-making activities that the 2021 Supreme Court decision has catalyzed are very different from the traditional means, and shouldn't be taken from the university's revenues. Bijan Robinson, for example, a Texas running back last year, and now player for the Atlanta Falcons, had his own line of Dijon mustard in Texas grocery stores. It's doubtful that the universities would be as motivated to run such a business operation. Another example, Barney Amor, who was a perhaps lower-profile college football player, a punter who played for the Nittany Lions team whilst at grad school at Penn State. Set out to fully cash in on the fame, he did have to make an income for himself, going around local business after local business pitching his services, signing deals with a donut store, a home goods store, and even partnering with healthcare companies. Amor became a salesman, selling himself and grinding hard to do so. This shows that lesser stars can still make money and take advantage of the new rules if they're inventive and persistent enough. All this money from event appearances to Instagram posts are all things that would be unlikely to have been taking place before the 2021 Supreme Court decision. It has taken an already hyper-commercialized system of college sports to a new level of commercialization. As student athletes like Amor have paved the way for figuring out how much more of college sports consumers' disposable income they are willing to pay for all of this new activity. And this process is still in its infancy, perhaps creating a whole new part of the industry, a whole new revenue pie, largely built on the deregulation of NIL rules. And it hasn't just been male athletes playing the lucrative and well-followed college sports that have prospered in this new era. Twins Hannah and Haley Cavender, who played for Fresno State's basketball team, were one of the most prominent cases of the NIL era's ushering in. With deals signed with the likes of Six-Star Pro Nutrition and Boost Mobile, minutes after NCAA athletes were permitted to. In their first year, the Twins signed endorsement deals with a further 28 brands, bringing the roster to a total of 31 and nearly $2 million made. Gymnast Olivia Dunn is now another hugely covered case, amassing over 4 million followers on Instagram and claiming to earn over $500,000 for a single social media post. With all of these huge success stories, it goes back to the question of why this was ever restricted. The USA is one of the most capitalistic nations on earth, bastions of the idea that the free market provides a society and its economic agents with the best outcomes.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
So why regulate this one market of college sport? Perhaps because of its link to education and student well-being. First and foremost, going round door to door like punter Barney Amor did, trying to convince donut shops to do a deal with you, may mean that your studying hours could take a hit, not to mention it's a bit of a punt. It's very easy to see how impressionable young adults who have just been presented with the opportunity to earn megabucks may decide to neglect their studies in favor of what in some cases could amount to nothing more than a temporary get-rich-quick scheme with no guarantee of financial return. For those that don't make it as professional athletes, neglecting your education by getting swept up in the NIL gold rush could have long and far-reaching consequences on your future career and finances. The same is true of those who do earn well at college from the new NIL landscape. Perhaps they could develop an unhealthy relationship with money. Say you've got a college quarterback now, earning hundreds of thousands a year before getting an awful injury. Perhaps he's created a lifestyle that's financially unsustainable, and now he doesn't have his football career. He's Do we want college athletes earning six figures before they completed their home economics extra credit? It's uncertain what the end result of all of this could be. The new NIL landscape in college sport is a very new beast, and only time will tell what it will mean for the athletes or for the universities. One thing's for sure though, and that's that now Pandora's box has been opened. It's very difficult to see it shutting.